We all have those little things we'd love to change about ourselves, right?
Hmm.
Like maybe you're thinking, I wish I exercised more, or if only I could learn that new language.
It really is remarkable how many of our lives run on autopilot, just driven by these habits we hardly even notice.
Well, today we're going to explore exactly how to turn those wishes into reality, using tiny changes to unlock remarkable results.
Exactly. And we're diving deep into Atomic Habits, the book by James Clear, which is just packed with actionable insights on how habits can be that secret weapon to achieving our goals.
Okay, so what's the big deal about habits anyway?
Right.
I mean, isn't it all about willpower and motivation?
While those definitely play a role, what's really powerful is understanding those underlying mechanics of how habits form
Uh-huh.
and then using that knowledge to our advantage.
So it's more about working with our brains
Exactly.
rather than fighting against us.
Exactly. Atomic Habits dives deep into, the science of habit formation, showing us how to rewire our brains for success.
So-
And one of the core concepts is the habit loop.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What exactly is a habit loop, and how does it work?
Think of it like this. Imagine a cat stuck in a box.
Okay.
Okay. Naturally, it wants out, so it starts frantically searching, pawing, and clawing at everything, right?
Yep.
Eventually, by pure chance, it stumbles upon a lever that opens the door to freedom.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. Desperate kitty on a mission.
Now, here's the key. The next time the cat is put in the box, it doesn't repeat that whole frantic search. It remembers the lever and goes straight for it, escaping much faster.
So the cat learns the trick to getting what it wants, freedom.
Precisely. And that learning process, repeated over time, that's the essence of a habit loop. It's a four-step cycle. Cue, craving, response, and reward.
A four-step cycle.
Yep.
Can you break that down a bit more for us?
Absolutely. The cue is that trigger that kicks off the whole process.
Okay.
In the cat experiment, it's being trapped in the box, right?
Right.
So the cue signals to the brain that there's a potential reward to be gained.
Okay, so the cue is like the starting pistol for the habit race.
Exactly.
What happens next?
Next comes the craving, which is the desire for change or the anticipation of the reward.
Okay.
In the cat's case, it's the longing for freedom.
Uh-huh. So the craving is what fuels the cat's motivation to take action.
Exactly. And the response is the action itself, the cat pressing the lever. Finally, the reward is that positive outcome that satisfies the craving, escaping the box and experiencing freedom.
So the reward is like the finish line, the prize the cat's been running towards.
Now, here's the fascinating part. This habit loop isn't just for cats escaping boxes, okay?
Right.
It's the same mechanism that drives our everyday human habits.
Really? I wouldn't have thought that a cat in a box could have so much in common with my morning coffee routine.
Think about it. You wake up in the morning and your brain registers that lack of caffeine. That's your cue.
Okay.
You crave that energy boost, so you respond by brewing a cup of coffee. And the reward is that delicious taste and feeling of alertness.
Wow, you're right. It's the same four-step cycle playing out, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
And it applies to so many of our behaviors. Walking into a dark room, cue, triggers the desire for light, craving, leading you to flip the light switch, response, and experience the reward of being able to see.
This is starting to make a lot of sense. So if our lives are governed by these habit loops, how can we hack them to create good habits and ditch the bad ones?
That's where James Clear's Atomic Habits comes in.
Okay.
He provides a framework for understanding how to manipulate each stage of the habit loop to make it work for us.
Okay, so let's dive into these habit hacking strategies.
Okay.
Where do we even begin?
The first step is making the cue obvious.
Okay.
Okay. If we want to make a habit stick, we need to make the trigger for that habit super visible and unavoidable.
So it's about creating an environment that supports our desired habits.
Precisely. Instead of vaguely hoping to practice guitar more often, leave your guitar out in the open, right in the middle of your living room where you can't miss it.
I get it. That visual reminder serves as a constant nudge, making it more likely that you'll actually pick up the guitar and practice. It's kind of like having a personal cheerleader in the form of a musical instrument.
Exactly. It's about making the cues for our desired habits impossible to ignore. Think about it like strategically placing healthy snacks front and center in your fridge so you're more likely to grab those instead of the less healthy options hiding in the back.
Out of sight, out of mind, as they say.
Exactly.
So we've made the cue obvious. What's the next step in this habit hacking adventure?
The next stage is making the habit attractive. Making the habit attractive.
Making the habit attractive. That sounds intriguing. How do we make something like, say, exercising or eating healthy suddenly feel irresistible.
This is where we tap into the power of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical. And the key here is anticipation. You see, our brains release dopamine not only when we experience pleasure, but also when we anticipate it.
So even just thinking about that delicious, healthy meal can get the dopamine party started.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
It is. Think about, how excited you get about an upcoming vacation or the release of a new season of your favorite show. That anticipation, that buzz, it's dopamine at work, motivating us to move towards those pleasurable experiences.
So how do we harness that anticipation to make our desired habits more appealing?
One powerful strategy is temptation bundling.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about linking an action you want to do with something you need to do.
I remember Clear talking about that engineering student, Ronan Byrne, who rigged his exercise bike to only work while he was watching Netflix.
That's a great example. He bundled his need to exercise with the tempting pleasure of binge watching his favorite shows. Suddenly, working out wasn't a chore. It became the key to unlocking his entertainment.
That's brilliant. So how can we apply this temptation bundling magic to, say, those of us who aren't engineering whizzes?
You don't need to hack any equipment. Let's say you love listening to podcasts but struggle to find the time for cleaning. Try this. Only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcasts while you're cleaning.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Suddenly those chores become a lot more enjoyable. It's like rewarding yourself with entertainment for being productive.
Exactly. Or let's say you're trying to learn a new language but keep getting distracted. You could try rewarding yourself with a small treat after each study session. Ooh. You get your language learning in and get a tasty reward. Yeah. A win-win.
These are such simple yet clever ways to make those desired habits more enticing. It's almost like tricking your brain into wanting to do the things that are good for you.
That's the beauty of understanding how our brains work. All right, so we've made the cue obvious and the habit attractive. What's the next step in our habit hacking journey?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Cookie rain chocolate. Just kidding. What does James Clear suggest?
He emphasizes making the habit easy.
Wow.
We're all about reducing friction and streamlining the process.
That makes sense. We, I think, naturally gravitate towards things that require minimal effort. Scrolling through social media, hitting that next episode button, those things are easy. But when it comes to building good habits, we sometimes make things too complicated for ourselves.
Absolutely. Think about Clear's example of his wife keeping a box of pre-sorted greeting cards. She's removed all the friction points, making it effortless to send a card without delay.
No last-minute trips to the store, no scrambling for a stamp. It's all about setting yourself up for success.
And this principle applies to breaking bad habits as well. If you want to watch less TV, try unplugging it after each use or putting the remote in a drawer.
Oh, okay.
Increase the friction, make it less convenient, and you'll be less likely to mindlessly turn it on.
It's like that saying, out of sight, out of mind. It applies to both good and bad habits, it seems.
It certainly does. Now, another powerful tool for making habits easy is the 2-minute rule.
2-minute rule. Tell me more. What's the magic behind it?
It's about breaking down any new habit into a 2-minute version. Instead of aiming to read an entire chapter of a book, commit to reading just 2 pages. Instead of a full workout, start with 2 minutes of stretching.
So it's like a gateway to the bigger habit.
Exactly. By making that initial step so ridiculously easy, you overcome inertia and build momentum. Suddenly, those 2 pages turn into 5, and those 2 minutes of stretching lead to a full workout. You've tricked your brain into taking action.
I love that. It's all about outsmarting ourselves in those initial resistance points. Okay, so we've covered making the cue obvious, the habit attractive, and the process easy. What's the final piece of the puzzle when it comes to building lasting habits?
The final step is making the habit satisfying.
Okay.
This is where we tap into the brain's reward system and ensure that those good behaviors deliver a sense of pleasure or accomplishment.
This is where things get a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some good habits, like saving money or eating healthy, have delayed rewards. We don't necessarily see the results right away, and that can make it tough to stay motivated.
You've hit on a key point. Our brains are wired to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term benefits. It's a leftover survival mechanism from our ancestors who focused on immediate needs like finding food and shelter.
That makes sense from an evolutionary perspective.
Right.
But how do we bridge that gap between our desire for instant gratification and the delayed rewards of good habits? How do we make those good habits feel good now?
Clear tells this fantastic story about Stephen Luby, a public health researcher who significantly improved sanitation practices in Karachi, Pakistan, and his secret weapon. It was soap.
Wait, soap? Really?
Not just any soap. This was a premium soap that lathered easily and smelled incredible. Suddenly, hand washing, which was previously viewed as a chore, became a pleasurable, even luxurious experience.
So people started washing their hands more often, not because they were forced to, but because it felt good. That's fascinating.
It's a brilliant example of how even simple tweaks can make a huge difference. It's about finding ways to make those desired behaviors intrinsically rewarding.
So if we're trying to eat healthier, maybe it's about experimenting with new recipes and discovering delicious and healthy meals that we genuinely enjoy. Or if we're trying to save money, maybe it's visualizing that dream vacation we're saving up for and getting excited about all the experiences we'll have.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to attach some immediate gratification to those habits that might otherwise feel like sacrifices. Clear shares another great example of a couple who wanted to eat out less and save money for a trip to Europe. They created a special savings account labeled Trip to Europe and deposited money into it every time they resisted the temptation to eat out.
That's brilliant. It's like giving themselves a mini reward every time they made the healthy, budget-friendly choice. And I bet seeing that Trip to Europe fund grow gave them an extra boost of motivation.
It's a fantastic strategy for turning those delayed rewards into something more tangible and satisfying in the present moment.
Okay, so we've covered all 4 stages of the habit loop. Making the cue obvious, the habit attractive, the process easy, and the reward satisfying. It seems like we've got a solid toolkit for building those atomic habits, but even with all these strategies in place, isn't it still possible for those good intentions to, fizzle out? What about the whole life happens factor?
That's a great point. Even with the best intentions, it's easy to get off track. That's why it's crucial to have strategies in place to help us stay motivated and accountable. That's why it's so crucial to have strategies in place to help us stay motivated and accountable.
So, assuming Clear has some suggestions here, what are some of the best ways to stick with it, even when life throws us curveballs?
Well, one really powerful technique is habit tracking.
Okay.
It's simple, yet remarkably effective. Remember Benjamin Franklin?
Uh-huh.
He was a huge advocate for self-improvement, and he kept a detailed journal where he tracked his progress in cultivating various virtues.
So we're talking like good old-fashioned journaling, or
Yeah.
like even those habit tracking apps.
Exactly.
I guess it's like giving ourselves a visual reminder of our consistency and accomplishment.
Precisely. The act of tracking itself can be incredibly motivating. Each time we mark off a successful day or log a workout, we get a little hit of dopamine, reinforcing that sense of progress and accomplishment.
It's like those gold stars we got in elementary school, except now we're giving them to ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, so habit tracking is one strategy. What else can we do to keep those good habits rolling?
Clear recommends creating what he calls a habit contract.
Okay.
It's about, upping the ante and introducing real consequences for failing to follow through.
A habit contract. That sounds serious. What does that look like in practice?
It can be as simple or as elaborate as you want.
Right.
Claire talks about entrepreneur Brian Harris, who created a weight loss contract with his wife and personal trainer.
Wow.
He outlined specific habits he wanted to stick to, like tracking his food intake and weighing himself regularly, then set financial penalties for slipping up.
So if he missed a day of food tracking, he'd pay his trainer. If he skipped a weigh-in, money went to his wife.
Yeah.
That's some serious accountability.
It worked for him. And not just because of the financial consequences, but because he involved people he cared about.
Uh-huh.
It added this social element to the contract, increasing his motivation to stay on track.
That makes a lot of sense. Whether it's a financial penalty, a promise to do a chore, or even admitting a slip-up to a friend, that external accountability can be really powerful.
Absolutely. We're social creatures by nature, and we're often, I think, more motivated to maintain a positive image in the eyes of others.
So we're basically tapping into our social wiring to reinforce those good habits. I love how all these strategies are like little psychological nudges, that we can use to keep ourselves moving in the right direction.
Remember, we're essentially rewiring our brains, creating new patterns, and automating those desired behaviors. It takes time and effort, but the results are well worth it.
Okay, before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listener who's ready to embark on their own habit-building journey?
One last tip.
Yeah.
Consider using habit stacking.
Okay.
It's about piggybacking a new habit onto an existing one.
Uh-huh.
For example, if you want to start meditating but struggle to find the time, try meditating right after you brush your teeth each morning.
Right.
You're already doing that existing habit consistently, so you're simply leveraging that existing momentum to build a new one.
That's like creating a chain reaction of positive habits. I'm feeling so inspired to go tweak my own habits and create some awesome new ones. Big thanks to James Clear for sharing his incredible insights in atomic habits, and to you, dear listener, for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling empowered to create lasting, positive change. Until next time, keep those habit loops spinning.